Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Skull Session Recruiting Podcast, brought to you by BuckeyeHuddle.com. I'm Mark Givler. Got Kevin Noon with me here today. I teased this on yesterday's episode. We'd probably have a special Skull Session podcast today, and sure enough, we do. Buckeyes land top 100 defensive end Zahir Mathis out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Imhotep charter. This one feels particularly big. I know like Devin Sanchez was huge, but this one feels like it's going to take a little more stress out of the fan base, even than Devin Sanchez. Just the way defensive end recruiting has gone the last couple cycles to get a guy early like this with this much talent. You're still in good with some other guys, which we'll get to in a minute. But this one feels really important for Ohio State, both from a personnel perspective and just, again, from kind of an anxiety perspective for both the staff and the fan base to get a high caliber defensive end this early in the process.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they missed their number last year. They missed their number the year before at defensive end. I think there was so much focus with fans on how this class of 24 was going to end that there wasn't a lot of talk about Zahir Mathis coming in. But when you look at him, top 100 type of player, the 247 composite has him as the number 37 player in the nation. I mean, it's somebody we should be talking about 6'5", 6'6", depending on who you talk to, 225-ish. Just a tremendous player out of Philadelphia. I mean, this is going to be a huge get. And, I sometimes with players like this, I almost wish they'd wait and get the commitment like right before signing day so we could have more fun in December than here talking about it in January. But get them when you can get them.
Yeah, I think there's certainly that line of thinking of these are always more exciting later in the process. But I think in this particular case, I think even the fan base is going to be really excited about this one just because of the position he plays, the talent he is at that position. But he's every bit of 6'5", super, super long and athletic. There he is. He can stand up and rush, put a hand in the dirt. A kid who has done a lot of developing physically since I first saw him as a freshman. And he was really kind of a twig out there. And he's up to about 230 now. So he's put on a lot of good weight. And at 230, still 12 months from reporting to Ohio State, you figure he can get up to about 240, maybe even 245 before he gets to Ohio State. And that's really about perfect. I mean, Chase Young wasn't much more than 235, 240 when he got to Ohio State. So you're looking at that type of frame. He's a special athlete coming off the edge because he is so flexible, so explosive, and kind of bendy coming off the edge. You see a lot of these guys, even like a Zach Harrison's, maybe a similar size kid at the same stage. I think he's a little more flexible than Zach was. He's just really able to make those kind of tight turns, turn the corner there, and get after the quarterback. He is a straight pass rusher. I mean, we've had these conversations about other guys they've recruited over the years. Even like an Edric Houston, who's I think is going to be a star at Ohio State, but even those guys, there's always questions. Well, is he going to outgrow defensive end, or is he really a pass rusher? Is he more of a strong side end? This guy is a put the hand in the dirt and go get the quarterback. So this is a really important pickup for them. They've got a lot of other defensive linemen they're still recruiting in 2025. So this is a very, very good start. We saw him at camp over the summer. It's kind of the last time we saw him, but he had a really good junior year. Went to the state championship game. Again, put on probably 15 pounds between these sophomore, junior seasons. Just got a lot bigger and was more productive as a junior. This is a situation where they started recruiting Zahir as a freshman. They were recruiting Anai White coming out of Imhotep charter a few years ago, who ultimately signed with Texas A&M. So this has been a long recruitment for them, even though it's an early commitment. This has been a guy they've been recruiting for 3 years. Good relationship with Larry Johnson, obviously, and just a guy who, with a little bit of weight and a little bit of seasoning, could become an absolute game wrecker coming off the edge.
Yeah, and I like the way that the class is coming together for Ohio State. You get Devin Sanchez, you get Zahir Mathis. Last year, I think that the way that the class of 24 came together, it was very offensive heavy at first. When you get the receivers starting to come in and how that all worked out. We're not going to hear that this year with the way that this class is. I mean, obviously, you do have some big offensive names with a wide receiver and a quarterback and everything else, but I think that White, you look at the churn in the room, and while we know Jack Sawyer's coming back, we have not at the time of recording had an official notice on what JT Tuimoloau is. But I mean, you could be losing your top two defensive ends at that point. What's going to happen beyond that? I mean, being able to just keep replenishing the cupboard is important. And you mentioned that Ohio State is still in on so many big defensive linemen for 25. I think it's important to kind of know where you stand. And again, we're in January. It's so early. But where you stand with some of these guys, so you don't get to the point of where you're in the first week of December and it's this guy or nothing. So getting White in the fold, the proximity. I know that Philadelphia is on the opposite part of the neighboring state, but it's still proximity is there. This is a huge get. The fact that he is making a commitment in January has to feel good that he has the comfortability with Ohio State. He knows that's where he wants to go. Doesn't mean you can stop recruiting him. You're going to have to absolutely recruit him. Nobody's going to give up on him, especially when some of the Southern schools actually start worrying about recruiting come about October.
Yeah, and the thing here is this will be their fourth commitment on defense already out of 6, and it's not going to stop. I don't think Dorian Brew announcing on January 24th could be another guy in the fold for the Buckeyes here. So now you've got Zahir Mathis, you've got Devin Sanchez, you've got Blake Woodby, you've got Eli Lee in-state as a linebacker, and then possibly adding Dorian Brew in about 2 weeks. Gosh, that is just such a tremendous start at various levels of the defense. So this is not going to be one of those like, oh, here we go again. It's all just offensive skill guys propping up the recruiting class or something like that. I mean, this is going to be a very well-balanced group. And again, the start they're on, some of that, the talent level of these guys, it's arguably even almost a better start than the way they did last year. There's maybe not, Jeremiah Smith, but like Devin Sanchez is like right up there as high as like Jeremiah Smith was at this point last year. So, I mean, this is an unbelievable start. And I think in some ways is a better start than last year just because of the relative balance of the class. Class impact here, obviously they're not done recruiting defensive linemen or defensive ends with just one in the fold right now. I think they need 3. There's probably people out there who be like, well, take 4 or 5. I think at that point you start to mess up your roster spacing a little bit and to keep 4 or 5 guys happy in the same class could be tricky with the transfer portal. But I think they'll try and take 3 for sure. And look, there's still some names out there. We'll kind of have to see who really takes off. But here's 2 good ones that I think if Ohio State could lock up, they'd be done. And I think this is possible. And I don't know how I could see this happening going into the summer. Like I could see sitting here before the season kicks off, certainly, maybe even before Big Ten Media Days kick off. And you've possibly got decisions from your other top, who I believe are their top 2 guys now, which are Justin Hill out of Winton Woods, who again is a pure just blur off the edge, 6'4", 215, 220 right now. Not a linebacker in my opinion. Definitely a guy that goes after the quarterback. He started off early in his career as a linebacker, made the move to defensive end this year at Winton Woods. I think he's an absolute terror off the edge as well. He's one of my top 3 players in Ohio for 25. Big time talent there. And then you've got London Merritt, who you've been recruiting for 2 years now out of Atlanta. He's transferred to IMG Academy, so he's going to play at IMG Academy his senior year. But, London's a little shorter than those guys. Like Zahir's at least 6'5", Justin's probably 6'4". London's probably like 6'2.5", 6'3", but he's also a little stockier. So like, I think when you look at London right now, you're thinking, oh, he's probably just like a like a weak side end, but he's actually very strong. And so you could actually put him on the opposite side of one of those guys and you'd be fine. But I think if Ohio State could draw this up right now, I think that's how that would look, is getting Merritt and getting Hill. And I think they lead for both guys. I'm really confident they're going to get Hill. I'm fairly confident they're going to get Mary's visited a ton. That one's going to be a little bit of a battle. You're talking about SEC country there and getting him out of the SEC. But boy, this could set up really well for them.
Yeah, and I think if you land both of those guys, then maybe you go big game hunting for one more. And then if you don't land him, then, I'm sure people will freak out about, well, they didn't go and get this guy. But, I mean, you put together quite the class with Mathis and Merritt and Hill. Hill recently dropping, I think it was a top 10. I mean, obviously Ohio State was in it. That's a solid get. And, and then it gives you the opportunity to look. I mean, maybe somebody closer to home blows up and, during the camp circuit or whatever. You just don't know at that point. But yeah, sign me up for that class if that's the case. And then you see what you get in the interior line at that point. But I think that's a huge step toward rectifying the last couple of cycles of not necessarily filling the ranks the way that you would have liked to in terms of number.
Yeah, and then you've got Brandon Caesar at Cleveland Heights, who they've offered, who I think probably grows into a tackle, but then that gives you more options there. That gives you more flexibility there. So, I've kind of been counting him more as a probable defensive 3-tech, but you never know. I mean, maybe he stays outside that. Now you do have 4, and then you just go down to Savannah and tell Elijah Griffin, what do we got to do? But, even, there's a Javian Hilson from Cocoa. You've already got a kid from Cocoa who's committed early to Hilson committed early to Alabama over Ohio State, but maybe you keep quietly kind of working, trying to chip away at that one too. So they've got several options here. So to get one early and to be in good shape for a couple others who I think will decide earlier. London Merritt kind of told me, maybe the spring, maybe some spring officials, and maybe into the summer he would decide. And I think Justin Hill could be one of those guys too. I don't think those are guys who are going to take you into December, the way we've kind of seen, or October, November, like we've kind of seen lately. And so they could really boost this thing, kind of turbocharge this whole rebuild of the defensive line room moving forward. So a lot of good options here. And again, huge pickup here for the Buckeyes. We'll be talking about it on BuckeyeHuddle.com. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. If you're not, youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Make sure you're subscribed on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And again, more to come on this at BuckeyeHuddle.com. But huge news for the Buckeyes. Another massive, massive pickup in what I expect is going to be a great month of January for Ohio State.